Welcome back to the Bro You Got This podcast. It is Super Bowl week. That's right. And my team
Are we allowed to say Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have a soup or a bowl.
Oh.
Either way. We're, who knows? We may be talking about the NFL, or we could be talking about soup in a bowl. I don't know. Could be one of the things. So, I'm originally from Kansas City, as you know, and so I'm a lifelong Chiefs fan. My dad had season tickets for 35 years of my life.
Paul Merrill, who normally wears sweet apparel, but not today.
Not today. Well, yeah. Oh, it's the Chiefs.
For you, but not for me, because it's all about the LA Rams.
The LA Rams.
But I will give it to you. You are from Kansas City, so we will give you a pass for loving the Chiefs. The fact that they just keep beating everybody has nothing to do with your love affair with the Chiefs. It's just all about loyalty for you.
It's all about loyalty for me. I will be a Chiefs fan no matter what.
Even if they're like 0-16.
Dude, so I was born in 1970. From 70 to 2020, that's 50 years, they hadn't won a Super Bowl in 50 years. And that entire time, I was a Chiefs fan. Well, when I was 5 or 6, I had no idea. But my dad, everybody was Chiefs fans for forever. So it's like you don't have a choice in Kansas City. You know what you do. The choice is like to be a part of everything or to be ostracized.
Yeah.
It's like you could if you choose. There was a couple guys that were Denver Broncos fans, and like what?
In Kansas City.
In Kansas City.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like, maybe
they're transplants, but
yeah.
Well, there was a season in the '90s where the Broncos were the dynasty, right? With John Elway.
Yeah, they went back-to-back Super Bowls, won them. So yeah, I cheered for them. You know, I was glad for them to win. You know, but it's just miserable being a Chiefs fan. We had Joe Montana for a while.
That's true. I forgot about
that.
Did he get you a Super Bowl?
No. We got really close. I think we got past the first round of the playoffs with him. I've been to a playoff game. You ever been to a playoff game?
I have.
They're insane.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother level. You think they're fun, and then you like go to one of those games, and it's crazy.
Well, the year that the Rams won the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship game was played at SoFi Stadium.
Were you there?
Yes.
No way.
So one of our good friends was a player at the time. He's been since traded. And he and his wife blessed Tara and I with tickets in their suite. So they played the Niners. And Paul, it was insane, bro.
Oh, yeah.
There were 3 49er fans to every 1 Rams fan. So it was like the 49ers had a home game. And then it came down to like one of the final drives, and Aaron Donald got the sack, and it was over. And the stadium was just like emptying out in just droves because all the Niner fans knew that they had been beat, and it was like so fun in that moment.
It feels
but it was
so
electric.
good.
It was electric.
It feels so good when your team wins.
Yeah, and I felt like that year was like it was supposed to be the Rams because then they were hosting the Super Bowl, and like how often has it happened where one of the hosting Super Bowl stadiums played the team that represented them, and then they won?
I was trying to think of...
I don't think that's ever happened.
I don't think that is ever happened. I think it's the first time. So, speaking of first times, Chiefs are going back to Super Bowl.
That's not the first time.
No. But I mean, first time to do a three-peat.
Oh, okay.
So there's a possibility that the Chiefs could go 3 years in a row win the Super Bowl.
You want to make a prediction? I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but give me your prediction.
I'll make sure this goes out beforehand.
Okay.
It's going to be a really close game, no matter what. I think the Chiefs will win by a point, or in the last 13 seconds. So anyway,
Well, Jalen Hurts is a former Sooner, and he's a former.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a former Bama guy too. But I will say, even though I don't want to say, Kansas City's going to win. And I got Kansas City winning by touchdown.
Do you?
That's my prediction.
I think it's going to be super close.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too over the top. But here's the thing: is like for me now that we've won and we're winning so much, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying we've been winning so much. It's like if we lose, I'm like, the monkey's kind of off our back. You know, it's like you've won 3 Super Bowls in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, so you missed 2020, then you missed a year, and then the last 2 years you've won. So I'm like, at some point, it kind of gets, you know, you're like, okay, if we lose, we'll be back. You know, whereas before it was like, oh my gosh, we're there, and just the first time in 2020, I was just like so desperate for them to win. I'm like, just get this one time. I want to see you guys win.
Now, did they play Philadelphia before in a Super Bowl? Was that just a few years ago, or am I thinking of a different team?
They did play Philadelphia.
And Philadelphia beat them, right?
No, it was who did they lose to? Did they lose to Philly? I forget who they lost to. It wasn't the Bills. I know that.
Well, I know Andy Reid used to coach the Eagles.
You're right. We beat the Eagles because because it was the Travis Kelce and his brother. Why can't I
That's
remember his name?
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
we
And
beat the
the
Eagles.
mom had the jersey that was like sewn.
Yeah.
Like one side was the Eagles and one side was the Chiefs. I remember that. And Kelce did. Travis Kelce did win that game.
Yeah.
I remember that.
You know what I think is cool about the NFL, and here lately, there's been a lot more players come out with their faith.
Yes.
And really being, I don't want to say over the top because that's not it, but just like living it out.
Yes.
You know, and we see players, it's been this way for a long time, but more and more players are praying before the game and after the game together. And there just seems to be this, for lack of a better word, a bit of a revival.
Yes.
Inside of the NFL.
Where you can just see the hand of God on these players. And the argument is like, is God just supernaturally anointing them with extra good talent? Or is it that they are so rooted into God that God is helping all of the other elements, that God leading their life is helping them mentally?
Yeah.
God being in their life is helping them emotionally, and God being in their life is helping them physically. And I would argue that's probably all of the above. It's probably there is probably an anointing on them as a player.
Yeah.
And there's also just more of a great healthy body, mind, soul, spirit kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with it. And I was I've been privileged enough to here lately in the last like 6-7 years be involved with the Chiefs organization, get an inside look into who they are. Clark Hunt, the owner of the Chiefs, is a very, 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 very strong Christian, very outspoken, has been for years and years and years. And so my daughters were invited to do the world's largest tailgate party at Chiefs Stadium. They were to host it. They hosted this thing. Roger Goodell was there. I got to meet Roger Goodell.
Oh my goodness.
It was pretty cool. And he has twin daughters. I don't know if you know that or
Oh,
not.
I did not know that.
So we got to talk about twins and stuff. And anyway, but the cool side of it is that we show up and, everyone's like super nice and all that stuff. And then we're having this dinner at the night before the event. We had to go through all like the order of service, if you will. And so we're just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden, like, are you a Christian? And then we kind of started, yeah, I am. And then all of a sudden, around the whole room, everybody in their marketing team anyway, and most of the executives there are all strong believers.
Wow.
So the Chiefs organization in and of itself is a Christian organization at this point, in my mind.
Yeah.
And
Well, when your whole staff
yeah.
are followers of Jesus, it's going to influence the organization.
Yeah. And here's what was cool, Jim. So the next day we're getting ready to go on and all this stuff, and the whole staff is there, and they asked me to pray. So right there in Tailgate Kingdom, where everyone's tailgating, we gathered, circled up, and prayed, and it was really cool. So they had a lot of technical problems. I don't know if my prayer worked, but it was fine though. It was really fun.
Tailgating at a Kansas City game, a lot of barbecue, huh?
A lot of barbecue. That's part of the whole experience. I mean, we would go there, and my dad and his buddies, they had the same spot. They would get there super early, and it was incredibly far away. For some reason, it was farther away than what you would think. It was like, why are you guys so far away? You get here early, you get closer. No, this is our spot. And so then they can leave if they leave, they can get out quicker. That was the
Right. That was the
whole
whole
thing. But yeah, it's
process.
Chiefs Kingdom shows up, and it is a crazy experience there. So lots of red, lots of partying, a little too much. So it's fun.
Well, I like our colors right
I do
now.
too.
So I wish it was the Rams versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. We were that close, bro.
You guys were.
So close this season. We'll get you next season maybe. But it is fun. I love the NFL. I think I love college football more. But being that we are in the LA area and now we've connected with so many of the players and the coaches, being that our church is in this area, I have to root for the Rams.
Yeah. And look, I think if the Chiefs weren't in it, I'm a firm believer of like wherever I live,
Yeah.
I'm always going to be a Chiefs fan. But if the Chiefs aren't playing the home team, I'm that fan too. So I was rooting for them to get there.
To win.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it only benefits our community, you know, and all the people.
And I just thought, man, with the fires, like it's got to happen.
I thought so too. I thought it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it
Not
didn't.
quite. Not
Just
quite.
wasn't their year. So
Yeah, but at least they made it to the playoffs, so
Yeah.
we'll take that.
So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. Are you superstitious in any way with games? Like, do you stand like in certain spots
I'm
around
not
the room? Or anything like that?
superstitious. I'm a little stitious.
Me too.
Yeah,
I was out here.
that was a little office joke, by the way.
So it's a little stitious. That's true. It is. Totally missed it.
That was Michael Scott.
So the first round, 2020, the first round of the playoffs, they were playing the Bills. And I was out here in the garage. And I was wearing this sweatshirt. And I was watching the game in the other room. And I came out here in the garage and I was like, the Chiefs are going to blow it. It's just going to be another one of those things. And I said to myself, I'm going to take this hoodie off and I'm just going to put it over here. And if they win the game, then I'm not going to put this hoodie on until they win the Super Bowl. And so that was the game where they came back and won it in 13 seconds.
Oh my God, I remember
Remember
game.
that?
Yes.
And so this hoodie, and it's on my Instagram.
It was
somewhere.
because you took your hoodie off.
It's because I took my hoodie
that
off.
they won.
And then I was convinced that I was actually a part of the team and that I shouldn't watch the games so they would win. But I left this hoodie on the. I used to have a sofa here. Left it on the sofa. I put a sign there. Said, "Do not touch this until after the Super Bowl."
So now that you know the organization, are they calling you to make sure, like, Paul, is the hoodie put away?
I told him the story. And you're like, you are on the team. He's like, you know how many other people think they're on the team? I'm like, I know. So,
Hundreds of thousands.
I've been watching it now because
Yeah.
Isaac is my nephew lives with us now, and he's an avid sports fan, and he turns it on. And
Who's his team?
He's a Niners fan, which makes it interesting for the family dynamic.
Yeah.
Because my brother-in-law, we all grew up in Kansas City, so we're all huge Chiefs fans. But it's the NFL is an interesting place. So I also, and I'm not trying to brag, but this is just really fun. So we got invited to go to the Quarterback premiere, which is a Netflix series called Quarterback.
Oh yeah, I've seen
So we
it.
got to go, and it was Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback that year that they did. And so, dude, I was on the field with him at one point. We've been to several Chiefs games on the field. His rookie year, his first year starting, I was standing on the field like this close to the camera, and he was throwing the ball and stuff. And like, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's really
That's
cool.
wild.
But no one knew at that point. He didn't have his breakout. It wasn't.
Yeah,
it was his,
he was just a rookie.
he was just a rookie,
Yeah.
But everyone was making a big deal out of him. But anyway, so we go to this Quarterback premiere, and I was terrified. He walked right past us a couple times. I was like, man, I just want to talk to him so bad, but I don't want to be that guy, And so my son-in-law Aaron was like, well, let's talk to Travis Kelce. I was like, okay. So we went over and we ended up talking with Travis Kelce for a while. Nicest dude you'd ever want to meet. Literally stopped everything and was like, felt like we were just like bros just talking. Like he wasn't like, and he was dating Taylor Swift at the time, but no one knew about it. It was right before that. So it was right before they had won their second Super Bowl our third Super Bowl. So, anyway, but it hadn't come out yet that he was dating Taylor Swift. It was like 2 weeks later, and they were dating. So I was like, oh, I was like right there in the moment.
Yeah, that was.
But what was really cool was he was just a normal dude.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, he said, he goes, I really want to take a picture here. You know, he said, I would normally, but, you know, just hanging out, you know, and then it was at a club, and there was a bunch of other, Julian Edelman was there from, do you know who that is? He was he's won 4 Super Bowls with the Patriots.
He's the wide receiver for the Patriots.
He was there. A couple other football players were there. Anyway.
Travis Kelce, before the whole Taylor Swift thing, I just was cracking up because, again, I'm a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite cassette tapes of 1986 or 87 was Beastie Boys' License to Ill.
Yeah, you got to fight.
Yeah, so when he started saying that, because he's in his 20s, I would think, or like maybe 30 now, but that was so funny that he's like quoting Beastie Boy lyrics.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you've gotten a sneak behind the curtain with, Kevin Nickerson, the chaplain for the Rams, and a couple other players and stuff. And
so through having a church in the area, it's been really fun and really eye-opening to peek behind the curtain with these players and the coaches and just the business aspect of it. But then they're just regular, normal guys. Yeah. And, this culture that loves to kind of idolize them and make, superstars out of them. At the end of the day, I mean, these guys have families, they have kids, and one player came to the church and, he was just a normal guy, loved the message, loved God. And I had a guy like come and take a selfie with them, and I could tell he felt really uncomfortable. And I just was like, hey bro, he just wants to come here and take his shoes off and like be family with us. Like, let's keep the whole selfie taking, for the field, and just let him be our brother, in the service. So it was fun to be able to get to know these guys on a personal basis. Kevin, who is a dear friend of ours, and he speaks at our church quite a bit. Matter of fact, he's speaking on Super Bowl Sunday.
Nice.
And he just has like been in the trenches with these guys and walked these guys through very difficult moments of their life. And it's really cool that the NFL recognizes how important the player's spiritual life is to their whole personhood. And so they allow these chaplains to actually not just be on the sideline, but to make time even in the weekly reps of their schedule to say, oh, there's Bible study. They don't enforce it. You don't have to go to chapel, but they create the time in the schedule for these players and the coaches to circle up and have Bible study. Yeah. And so one time I was able to go before one of the games and gave the chapel talk. So before the game,
you really?
Yes. And I didn't even know they really did these. And so they invited me to come and speak before one of the games. And I was like super nervous, bro.
Well, yeah.
I was super nervous. And it's one thing to speak to your congregation, but all these players, and mind you, most of them are in their 20s, so they're young adults.
Right.
And so I'm going in there, I've been in ministry longer than most of them have been alive, but it's still intimidating, man. So I go in there and there's probably, 20 guys from the team that are just there. And I have these handout sheets and we talk about anxiety. I went through the Bible. I really prayed over it. And I even put down there, I don't even know why I did, like, hey, if you want to connect, here's my Instagram or whatever. And a great response. But I was so nervous. I was like, I didn't even pray with them. I should have prayed with them at the end, but I was super nervous. Gave a great talk. And then, a bunch of them followed me on Instagram afterwards. I was like, oh, this is so weird. But again, it was a great reminder that as we put these guys on these pedestals, at the end of the day, they're just regular guys. Yeah. That are trying to earn a living, that are trying to raise a family, and they're trying to be godly in a very ungodly environment. Yeah. And so they need that prayer. They need that those moments with God. And so I was super grateful that they gave me the opportunity. They got tore up by the Ravens that game. And I thought to myself, talking about superstition, I go, maybe they made a note, like, what did we do differently in this game? They're like, oh, we had that guest speaker for the chapel. So I haven't been invited back.
You haven't been invited back since. Oh, dude.
So they made a little note around my name going, the Ravens beat us really bad when he spoke. So let's...
No Jim Cruz. If we have Jim Cruz, we're going to lose. Oh, that's terrible. No, that's not true. That's why your name is so like, it's like just right there, dude. There's so many. It's funny.
Well, I got to talk to Pastor Kevin about this.
Talk to Pastor Kevin.
Man, why haven't I been invited back? Was it because the Ravens beat him so bad the time I guest spoke? But
anyway. Pray for us before he went out on the field.
Yeah, but those guys, the team is great. I follow an Instagram account called Sports Spectrum.
Oh,
and it is an Instagram account. It's an organization. I think they're 501c3, but they want to really push all of these testimonies from these professional athletes because they know that it influences all these, players that are looking up to these, professional athletes. Mm-hmm. So it's not just football, but, all the different sports. But I love that they've been featuring, it seems like almost every week, players at the end of the game that are coming to the 50-yard line from both teams, dropping to a knee and praying together. Mm-hmm. And I just love that kind of like moment that is being captured. I've noticed, interesting enough, that the broadcast of the TV, like they're not showing any of that.
Yeah, they're cutting away.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, I understand there are people who are not believers or don't think that that's a big deal, but what a big deal it would be if they just like really featured it, it's like, show people how to win, but also how to lose.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a game.
Yep.
It's a very high stakes, high level game, obviously, but at the end of the day, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, and I think these guys that have got Christ in their life handle it so much better than the guys who don't, the losses, even the wins too. Cause you've seen, players that are out there just go nutso, and then they don't have a career anymore because they just going off the deep end, doing all kinds of crazy things, so
it's unfortunate. In segueing to college football, of course, my Sooners, they struggled this year, but I'm really big into college football. And what I've noticed, Paul, is like the shift with the NILs and the transfer portal. Yeah. It's made college football so weird.
It really has.
Yeah.
It's crazy weird what's happened to it.
So I don't even know. I was talking to a guy that coaches on the college level, and he says it's so messy now because you're not recruiting high school kids. You're actually recruiting players that are playing for other colleges, and you're trying to entice them to come.
Right.
And then these boosters are like getting all the revenue, and they're throwing cash at these players to entice them to come to their universities. And I think the first year they did the transfer portal, I think there were like maybe 1,000 players that did it. The second or third year I was reading, it was almost 4,000. This year, bro, over 13,000 players entered into the transfer portal. So we're talking the teams that we saw play this year are not going to be next year. They're all reorganized. They all have different players. They've all shuffled everybody. Yeah. And then these players, can you imagine this, Paul? You're 18 years old, dude, and somebody's giving you $6 million.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. I've seen what it can do to kids, because on the social media side, I know kids who
that are making that kind of money just on TikTok or whatever. Yeah.
And you see what it just messes with you, something terrible. There's a real danger in. I mean, it's like they've really. I don't want to say messed it up, but kind of messed it up.
But it's kind of like understand it to
I
a
do
degree
too, yeah.
because I know like 3 or 4 different players that were majorly injured in college that had high hopes to
Right.
go in to play
And
professionally.
they never will.
And now their football playing days are done because of a concussion or because of this
Right.
messed up leg. So they'll never play football again. And they got nothing. They got no money out of the deal at all because of that injury. So I kind of understand, like, you're putting your body on the line, even as a 19-year-old collegiate player, where you may get messed up and never be able to play the game again. So,
Well, and then you look at what all those guys are, the actual, TV endorsements and stuff and the money the colleges get from.
oh, I know.
Your broadcasting
it's ridiculous.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah.
Even some of the universities and the money that they're taking in from all of that revenue. It's like, well,
It's
the
huge.
players should get something. But
I think so.
But I remember when the UFC came on scene and we had planted a church in Vegas and it was called Ultimate Fighting Championship. And they
Yeah.
were all over the casinos. They were doing all of these cage fights. There were no rules, Paul.
It was insane.
It was insane, dude.
Yeah.
And I love UFC. And I just remember the early days, dude. There was no rules and it was like guys were seriously getting hurt. And once they put some regulations and some rules in it, and it was like, oh, okay, this is still entertaining, but guys aren't dying or getting like really messed up, and they can have like a career just like a boxer would. I see that coming for college football. They're gonna put
gonna
some
have
rules
to.
and they're gonna have to because
no
it's
way.
getting ridiculous and. Somebody's going to end up getting really messed up in the whole ordeal. And I just feel bad for these college coaches.
Did you play football in high school?
I did a little bit. So we actually moved to Oklahoma after my freshman year. So I played my freshman year. Bro, I probably weighed 100 pounds, 105 pounds. Dude, I was like 5'6". My freshman physical, dude, I cried because my doctor said I would be 5'8".
Oh my gosh.
I have a brother, dude, that's 6'5". So I got in the car. I had to get the physical to play football. And my dad tells me, he goes, I was so sad for you because you just like cried. You're like, I'm not going to be as tall as my brother. Well, I'm like 6'1" now. So that obviously was not accurate information from my physician. But I just remember my freshman year, I was like, I loved the Houston Oilers, and I just was like, I'm going to be Earl Campbell. So I wanted to be the running back. And I'm like, I don't even barely weigh 100 pounds. I'm 5'6", and I'm like, I'm fast. And I was pretty fast, I got to say that.
Yeah.
But I will never forget, it was like one of our first like real play scrimmages, and the coach is trying to figure out who he's going to start. And I get the ball, and I'm running this outside pitch, and I get the pitch, and I'm like, oh, I got this. So I got the pitch, and I'm taking the outside lane, and I'm like, oh, nobody's gonna catch me. Like I can go by. And this linebacker, dude, he probably weighed 250. I don't know. He was just he was a freight train. That bro ran me down. He like took this angle. He caught up to me like I was moving in slow motion, and he tackled me, dude. I felt like the cartoon. Like I felt like I was under the grass.
Yeah.
I felt like there was an imprint on my body, and he hit me so hard, dude. He knocked the wind out of me. I was just laying there, and I was like, I couldn't breathe. And I just was laying there, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And he was a great guy. He just, he's a linebacker. He's supposed to tackle the guy with the ball. And I just laid there, and I finally just was like, okay, I can breathe again. And I got up, and I'm like, I really don't know if I can play football. I just don't know if I am built to play football.
That's really funny. I played my freshman year too, and I think I weighed 125 with my pads on.
Oh my God.
And I was tall. I was probably 5'10" at that point as a freshman. And I played a lot of backyard football, and my dad, football player and stuff. But I I had never played football with pads ever. And the first time, our first drill was this drill. They put the cones up and you would like bang into each other. And then at the very end, you had to tackle the guy with the ball.
Yeah.
This kid named Vincent Brown, he was a stud, and I was like just a punk. And so the first time I hit him, I was like, oh, that hurt. And then the last time, and then it's like, you got to tackle him. And that dude ran me over. And I felt just like you, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? This is not what I anticipated. I expected it to be a lot more, like, less violent. It was so violent. But my dad was like, I came home and I was like, I'm not sure if football's for me. And he said, he goes, just finish the year. I want you to finish, and see, how it was. And we had a guy on our team that went pro. His name's Jason Belzer. He played for the Colts, and he eventually ended his career playing for the Chiefs. Jason Belzer, I actually tackled him one time on accident. I don't know how I got the kid down. He was just big, burly dude, and I got him down one time.
Solid muscle.
Yeah, and he was so mad that I tackled him. He's like, Paul Merrill tackled me. But he went on to be a great football player in the NFL. But anyway, yeah, football. My dad, at the end of that year, he said, I'm just going to tell you, I'll be proud of you no matter what.
Whatever you do.
He goes, I have so many aches and pains from playing football. My dad was an All-American, got a college scholarship, ended up getting drafted to go to Vietnam. So he didn't end up playing, but he said, he goes, my knees are messed up, my head's messed up, So he knocked some dude out one time. He was a fullback, just beast.
Just laid a guy out.
Yeah, and he told me, he goes, you just got to be really, really angry about something. You want to go kill somebody. I'm like, really? I don't want to kill anybody. He's like, yeah, that's why you're going to get hurt.
And that's why you and I both are like, that's probably not our thing.
Yeah. But I at least know enough to respect the game and go, yeah, it's a tough sport.
Yeah. Of course, we have a son, and I just was like, I would love for him to play football. And he was playing flag football at a really young age. And he was super good, super talented at catching and throwing. And I'm like, man, my kid, every sport that Josiah did, he just was like crushing it. And he just like a natural athlete. And so when high school rolled around, I'm like, hey, man, like, what do you think? And his mom was against it.
Yeah.
And we had this doctor in Vegas that was hired by the NFL Players Union as one of the top physicians for like retired players to go and see for their aches and pains and problems. And so people were flying in, like retired players were flying into Vegas just to see this guy.
Wow.
And he told Tara and I, like separately, he's like, hey, whatever you do, don't let your son play football. And that stuck with me. And this is like, Joe was, I think, a middle schooler at the time, but then there was this piece of me that was like, but he'd be so good. And so Tara's like telling me, going, remember, Dr. Miller was like, don't let your kid play. And he's seen all these athletes with all these aches and pains and these war wounds, and they have you seen Earl Campbell? Like I think he's still alive, but that guy, he played for Texas in college, and then he played for Houston, but he could barely walk. Yeah. Like his knees are just gone. And, of course they're a lot more protected now, and the the padding and the helmets are all different, but it's still a very violent sport. So Josiah we didn't ever have to really deal with it because he ended up loving soccer.
Yeah, it's a great sport.
Well, you can get some concussions in soccer too. He had some headers that he would hit, and that ball would fly like 40 yards. I'm going, what in the world? Like, that's a concussion, that hitting the ball. But he was super good in soccer, had a great career. Yeah. Played a little bit college. And it was a fun sport as well. But all that to say, it's a crazy, violent sport.
It's a very violent sport. I was on a flight with Franco Harris. Remember Franco Harris?
Yeah, from the Steelers.
And that dude could barely walk. Wow. And he was, I think I looked him up, he was like 65, 70 at the time, just like really struggling. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It really does take a toll on you. And I've seen a lot of that. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. But yeah, well, we haven't talked really too much about spiritual things.
Well, it's
bro, you got
Super
this.
Bowl. We're talking
Yeah.
about these athletes. We're talking about faith and sports. So we did talk about it a little bit.
Well,
but-
you know what? An organization that I love is a Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yes.
They're
Well, they're
involved in-
based in Kansas City,
yeah,
right?
They are right across from Chiefs Stadium.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
they're literally. Oh, and fun fact: my studio that I owned was right across from Chiefs Stadium. That's where.
What?
Yeah. I used to do a lot of work with them at times.
What's that? Arrowhead Stadium.
Arrowhead Stadium.
Arrowhead
I still
Stadium.
call it. They call it Gia Arrowhead, something like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it's Arrowhead. We're not changing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried to change the Chiefs name. Did you know that?
No.
In Kansas City, everyone's like, you change a Chiefs name, there's going to be a riot. There's going to be
Wow.
something brutal here
Wow.
in Kansas City. So they didn't change it. They tried to get rid of the tomahawk chop, all that stuff.
And it
so,
didn't work.
Yeah. And it's weird to, and I get like the Redskins.
Yeah.
I get that. I understand that. I wish it was a little different, but, that's just one of those things. Chiefs Stadium Arrowhead Stadium is just iconic.
Have you done anything with Fellowship of Christian Athletes?
I did. Let's see. They got a grant with. There's a video that I did with them. They got a grant from an organization I was working with and got to go in and interview the head of Fellowship Christian Athletes and stuff like that. They're really, really great people. And then, of course, like when I was in youth ministry, they were everywhere. So we were able to, they opened a lot of doors to public school that we couldn't otherwise.
Oh,
back
I know.
then,
I think of my son, who is our youth pastor, and he has a connection with all these FCA people locally, and he goes to support them, but he goes right on the campus, feeds these kids pizza, and they get to talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
And they're not just having athletes show up for these little pizza huddles. They're having all kinds of students.
Right.
And it's amazing. Like
an open
in
door.
this like culture, the separation of church and state, that they're still recognizing a group like Fellowship of Christian Athletes and saying like there's value here, and kids are still giving their lives to Christ through organizations like Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Well, anyone with any ability to be objectively observant would say that the Christian faith has a huge impact on someone's life, especially as a young, as a teenager. So I think if you are, as an educator, if you're really committed to like the best for a student, you're going to be open to allowing, faith-based, things like, Fellowship of Christian Athletes to come onto your campus, have an impact on, because I promise you, and it happened in Lee Summit, it happened, here in LA, wherever, but I promise you, the impact that Fellowship of Christian Athletes had on a team or on students drastically changes discipline at school. Their grades get better. All of that gets so much better. We had a moment in my high school where a lot of the guys got saved on the football team, and it made a huge difference. It went through the whole school. Like everyone was like, did you hear about what happened, to these guys? And Jason Belzer was one of the guys.
Wow.
So it was like really, really cool. I was like, that's amazing what's happened. And Jason Belzer got up and spoke at he was a senior, and he went to OU. He went to Oklahoma University. Jason Belzer. I'm pretty sure he went to Oklahoma. Never mind. He went to Oklahoma
State?
Oklahoma State. Yeah.
Okay. He's a Cowboy.
Hold on.
With
We
Barry
need to look at
Sanders.
We need to look it up.
Yeah. We'll have to fact check this one. There is Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. One's the Cowboys, one's the Sooners.
Okay, hold on. He played college football for the Oklahoma Sooners.
Dang. What year?
Jason Belzer. It would have been 1989, and he was drafted to the Colts in 92.
Okay.
So, because we graduated in 88.
Yeah.
So, Jason
Yeah.
Belzer, I believe he played safety.
Okay.
For
That's right after Brian Bosworth, and I think their last national championship before 2000 was '87. It was
he wouldn't
and
have
that's
been on that
when
team.
that's when I lived in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was a big deal that he got drafted, that he was going to that school. He in '87,
Oklahoma, yeah.
in the last 2 years of his high school career, we knew he had already
He was going
committed.
to Oklahoma. He had already committed to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Dang.
I was in a couple classes with him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Pretty big deal.
it was a big deal. So yeah, there's Sooner connection right there.
Wow,
who
bro.
Who would have known?
I know. I know, man. Well, regardless of who wins the Super Bowl, we also know there are going to be some epic commercials.
Epic commercials. I've had friends want me to do the Doritos competition.
Oh, you would crush that.
I don't know. Make a commercial for Doritos. Every
Yes.
time I'm like, oh, and then it sneaks up on me and I'm like, oh, it's too late. I missed it. So
Oh, bro, you would come up with a concept
maybe
that would probably win.
it would be really fun
Yeah.
to try. It'd be really fun to try.
You should get your girls to do it with you or something.
Yeah, I would get. It's one of those things where we have to be careful because of all the brand deals that we do and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I'd have to go through
Yeah.
all this, and also they're SAG, so you can't have professional actresses and actors in it. I don't think. I think it's part of the thing because they've been in a couple movies. They were on Jane the Virgin, all that. So
Well, I'm not part of SAG, so
you could do
I'll
it.
be in your
yeah, we could do it.
Doritos
It'd be
commercial.
fun. I love talking about sports, dude. I
It is
love,
great.
I
Obviously, football is your favorite.
motorsports are my favorite, actually.
NASCAR.
In terms of just in general, all
general.
of it. I mean,
Formula One.
Formula One,
Yeah.
all of that. That's my go-to sport in terms of if you could only have one sport. And some people, it's a motorsport, so it's different. But
Yeah.
sports, it's definitely football.
Yeah.
Definitely football. So I don't, especially with the Chiefs. So it's neck and neck. It's like motorsports is like right here and in football.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, baseball's great.
Yeah.
I love baseball. I just think, and basketball is fun. I really enjoy that too. But I think football, just because it's just been so ingrained in
Yeah, it's been
my
a part
life.
of our upbringing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I mean, we had the Lakers, but it wasn't like super popular, at least in my household. So I really didn't grow up. Now I'm probably more into the NBA than I've ever been.
Yeah.
And part of that is Steph Curry, the Steph Curry effect.
Yeah.
For me personally, because I love that bro.
Yeah.
And,
He's a good dude.
Following the NBA on that front has been fun. But yeah, hands down for me, it's football. And I would say first place college, second place NFL.
Yeah, I think college is a fun.
Yeah. And this playoff thing that happened this year
It's crazy.
was so fun.
It was really fun.
Yes.
It's the first year that I've been really into all the
and
bowl
then
games.
Talk about spiritual revival as Ohio
Yeah.
State wins the national championship, something that wasn't really talked about. But I saw this back last spring before the season ever started. There was revival happening on the Ohio State campus,
Yeah.
and it was being led by their players, bro.
Yeah.
Their players were baptizing kids, had nothing
so
to do.
incredible.
They weren't doing this hey, if we just rub God the right way, we'll get a national championship. They were authentically loving God and following Jesus, and they wanted to see their campus reach
Yeah.
for Jesus. And I'm not a Buckeye fan. I know a lot of friends that are.
Yeah, I'm not a Buckeye fan.
But I just, all the fans that I know that are friends of mine, I'm like, bro, this is the most epic year for Ohio State football that I can remember. And I've watched them win lots of national championships, way more in my lifetime than Oklahoma has. But I will say, man, it was pretty special what God did on that campus this year, using the football players specifically. And then to see them at the end get a national championship.
yeah,
That's
it's
crazy.
But the same thing I think happened in Notre Dame as well. Did you see the quarterback after the game
No, but
and what he's
I didn't follow him, but there was something special on that kid when I watched him. What game was it?
It was the game to get to the national championship.
where it just he just illuminated
Yeah.
this goodness.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really paying attention to what he said. So what's his story?
Well, all I know is that I don't know his story all that well. All I know is that at the end, he he thanked God for all of it. And the way he did it, I can't remember exactly what he said because my brain's not working now, but in the press conference, he was just so well spoken and just gave glory to God in all of it, was speaking so highly of the Buckeyes and their team and then all of his teammates, and just the way he exuded just the light of Christ in that moment in the loss was incredible. And then they were all praying with each other after.
So
both
cool.
teams were praying with each other. It was really, really cool. So I felt like there's definitely a push back to the fundamentals of just being Christians. And at the end of the day, it is just a game, and we can come together as followers of Jesus, and we can beat the crap out of each other on the football field, but then we can love on each other the way Christ calls us to in the middle of, a loss, in the middle of a win too, and celebrate and also have compassion in the middle of all that. So
to have that sportsmanship. And I always think it's so funny, like before a UFC fight and these, guys like, posing or doing their little press conference beforehand and even get a little chippy with each other. And then after the fight, like they're hugging it out. After they were just beating each other down.
It's crazy.
Like, it's so funny.
You realize that they do all that for promo stuff. It's like at the end of the day, you're selling a product.
But I've noticed, I don't know if you follow the UFC, but I've noticed there are a lot of guys in the UFC that have strong faith.
Yeah, totally. He just retired. What's his name? I can see his face. He fought Jake Paul again. Why can't I think of that guy's name? Anyway, but yeah, you're 100% right. There's so many guys that have just their faith is just on display, even though they're beating each other up. I remember in Kansas City, we got invited to this. The girls got invited to sing the national anthem at a local UFC fight, like one of their lower brackets. And there was a whole organization of guys there, and they were all Christians. It was all faith-based fighters. And, and they're like, we're fighting for Jesus. I'm like, all right. That's an interesting
Some friends of mine
dynamic.
do the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and there's a lot of spiritual principles that are really woven into jiu-jitsu. And it's very interesting, especially like you get into the thought of spiritual warfare, and it's all about the counterattack and respond, and it's how you respond to the attack that will allow you to actually have victory over your opponent. And it's like, whoa, there's so many spiritual things that are ingrained into that. So maybe that's part of people being a little bit more open to God.
I think
in
so.
the sports.
My years ago, my insurance agent, he was my age, and he was like, "Yeah, I have a jiu-jitsu, what do they call them? Not a dojo, but a club, for lack of a better word, a club." And he goes, "We do training and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I think I was like 26, 27 at the time. I was like, "Man, I would love to I just would love to learn how to defend myself and stuff." And he's like, "Yeah, you should come out sometime." And so I show up there. He goes, it's a Thursday night. So I go over there on a Thursday night. We actually had some insurance stuff to talk about. And everybody's walking around calling him sensei and all this stuff. And Alan, his name's Alan. He was Filipino, and he's just stocky dude. And all these, he was teaching all these guys just how to fight. But not just it's like what you said, how to use your opponent's attack to pivot. And isn't that what, there is a spiritual component to it. Because if you look at our faith, is never hey, you should be the one going after and killing people or anything like that. It's always you are always to be a response. Your response is to be that of love, of something
the call
different.
Of the Apostle Paul is to stand firm in your faith.
Right.
And that means don't be knocked off your ground.
Right.
So stand firm in that. And so he talks about schemes. So it's a lot of fighter language in Ephesians 6. But I just look at it that the enemy is trying to come and he's trying to knock us down off of this place that we're standing. And the call of the Apostle Paul is hey, your job is to stand firm, knowing not just who you are, but whose you are. And that's going to allow you to withstand the attacks of the enemy and put on that whole armor of God.
Exactly.
So I love Ephesians 6.
Amen to that.
Because it's spiritual warfare, fighter language. So anyway, my wife is texting me.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Nessa's been texting me too. I've gotten all kinds of texts.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We're just busy.
The connected lives.
We're just busy guys.
Of dudes. That's
Yeah.
what we do. Well, regardless of who wins the Super Bowl, my life will be the same afterwards. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people that hate on the Chiefs, or
Right.
a lot of people get really wrapped up in sports a little too much. So
Yeah.
if that's you, stop that.
Stop that.
You make it no fun for everybody else.
Don't make it an idol.
Yeah, don't.
Anything that
yeah.
you put above God is
Yeah.
the definition of idolatry.
Exactly.
So anything that you're putting above God, you can have passions
Right.
other than God, but your number one passion is God. And if you put any other passion above Him, that is what the Bible would call idolatry. And I think some people do have sports as an idol in their life, and not just like professional sports, but we'll have to save this for a podcast of another
exactly
day.
what you're gonna say.
with parents, bringing up their kids and creating idols with their kids in sports.
Exactly.
And so that's a phenomenon that I think is very unique to the American culture.
Very much so.
So,
And I think it's definitely something we definitely should talk about that. We should totally talk about that.
But you can have football as a passion,
exactly.
but make God your number one passion of your life.
You can have football, just make sure football doesn't have you.
Boom.
Boom. Take that, Satan. All right, well, this is it. I know it's been a Super Bowl edition of the Bro You Got This podcast, and we just hope you guys enjoy listening to us, and just follow us on all of our social media, follow our podcast. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys later.
We'll see you next time, and maybe Paul will come back with a New Jersey wearing 3 Super Bowl patches.
The Chief Pete is what they're going to call it.
The Chief. See you guys next time.
I thought you were going to give me a high five. Awkward high five.